Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Hello, I want to say good evening or good morning. We are coming at you live from Canton, England today. Welcome to another wonderful episode on the Strategic Project Leader. That's right. Here we help you as leaders or even aspiring project managers become the best in your craft. But not only accelerate your careers, but also create the life you actually crave. That's right. Project management is beyond just a career or a discipline. I see it as a lifestyle. I'm your host, Fola Alabi, the Strategic Project Leader. I'm a keynote speaker, consultant, and an educator. I am all about leveraging my superpowers to help you move further faster. On today's episode, it's one that I have been waiting for such a long time. First off, I want to know where you're joining in from. I know I've got my usual people from North America, from Europe. Wherever you are, let us know in the comments where you are actually joining us from before we actually get into the conversation. But today, I have got not just a leader. This is an interesting piece because I say he's not just a leader, he's also human. He's one who has got a heart, not just for leadership and for project management, but he's got one for people. He's one who has put in a lot of time to develop the profession, and he's always been giving back as well. He recently even got an OBE from the King of England. I'm so delighted to welcome this leader. But before I even get you into this particular secret of who he is, I want to tell you a little bit more. There's a piece that I found out recently. He's actually a qualified clinical hypnotherapist. My goodness, I don't know if we're going to get a bit of that today, because I saw that piece as well. But he's been a CEO for a number of organizations. But today, he is the Chief Executive Officer for the Association for Project Management. He's shaping the way we do projects, and he's creating not just a moment, but I call it a movement. It's transforming not just lives in Europe, but all over the world. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, but without any further ado, join me in welcoming on board Professor Adam Boddison. Professor, how are you doing today?
Fabulous. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Great to have you as well. Thanks for being here today. First of all, I must say I'm right down in your city. I am in England. We're not doing this from North America today. We're both live in England. So it's definitely awesome to have you live in the studio and a strategic project leader. But I want us to dive right in. Today, we want to talk about how project professionals can actually work to develop not just, a better career, but how can we create economic and social impact? But before I dive there, I want to know, how did your journey into project management actually start?
Kind of by chance. I suppose I would say serendipity, a happy accident. So my background is actually, believe it or not, as a teacher in education. And from there, I went into kind of special education, thinking about special educational needs. And I ran a charity and a professional body, which was in the kind of special educational needs space. And that's when I really got interested in the world of professional bodies. And it was that pathway that led me to Association for Project Management, which is itself, of course, the only chartered professional body for the project profession in the world. And so I've been here now for 18 months, and I think it's one of the best jobs I've ever had.
I know when it comes to projects, just imagining doing something you love and you're impacting lives as well. But I know that you're moving from, a space where you've had to support people who are actually vulnerable, and now you can actually do that as well as impact lives globally. That must definitely really be rewarding as well. So when we dive that right into it, a lot of people look at project management and they wonder, how exactly do I start? People say, I've got a career, I think I'm a project manager, and I want to accelerate and I want to move up the corporate ladder. I want to not only become better as a person, but I want to also create that economic benefit within the community. How exactly do you think that professions can actually take that journey?
Yeah, so I think you kind of touched on 2 points there, haven't you?
Yeah.
One is the kind of pathways through the profession, if I think of it like that, and the second one is then the impact that you can have on that journey. So let me take them in kind of 2 parts. So on pathways, I think it's both both a blessing and a curse of the profession, which is that it's so complicated, it's so complex. You know, if I think about other professions, let's say the medical profession, it's kind of quite linear, right? I mean, there's only one way through. You kind of you train to be maybe a doctor, you go to medical school, you become a junior doctor, you qualify, then you become a specialist and so on. You can't really just kind of say, well, I've had a senior career as an architect, I'm going to come straight in as a consultant or something like that. It doesn't work, right? You've got to start at the beginning. But the project profession is different. The project profession has many pathways, many entry points. You can find yourself, as you said before, accidentally kind of falling into the profession because your job has changed over time. So that can be hard to recognize sometimes that you are actually a project professional. But once you do, the complexity of the pathways then gives you lots of options, right? Because there's not just one way through to being a strategic project leader. There are many ways. And so that means that individuals can actually almost set their own path, or they can think about what others have done. So I think that's the first part. The second part of what you asked me about was really to do with the kind of social and economic impact. And we have a great strapline at APM, Association Project Management, which is when projects succeed, society benefits. And what that's really all about is trying to capture the fact that that actually every project at its heart, when you ask people why they're involved in these projects, sometimes it's for the technical fun, but most of the time it's because of the impact it's going to have on society. And that's wonderful. You know, I think it's absolutely great. The other thing I'd just say as well is social mobility is something I'm really passionate about. This idea that wherever you start in life, that you can actually kind of make your own path and get to wherever you want to be. The project profession is great for that, because you can join that profession at any point, whether, you know, straight out of school, I know nothing, or I'm very experienced in a different sector. And so the profession itself is a driver for social mobility. But social mobility also, I think that diversity it brings adds value to effective project delivery and project outcomes.
That's a very good point. I love the fact that you clearly stated the different entry points, and the fact that when you're thinking about projects, we are directly impacting the economy. And that social mobility piece is another piece that a lot of people never understand the leverage that they actually have. Unlike other professions, I know you say it could be a curse and a blessing. You can easily apply this in different aspects, even in your personal life as well. And then getting a skill that you could get even paid really well for, then I think it's a blessing. It's a win-win where you win, because I say I apply this in my business, in my personal life, you know, and I also help other people feel that their own, you know, crave for something better, leveraging the same skill set. So I'm like, how does it never gets even better? Now I want us to take this a little bit deeper. We've talked a bit about social mobility and the fact that the path to get into projects could actually be, you know, different, could have different angles. However, as project professionals, when they think about being able to adapt and evolve, because I see projects kind of changing from where it kind of started, where it was more about deliver on time and on budget and to quality. Today, we're looking at a strategic focus to it, where we look at how does project link back to corporate objectives? How are you sure your project will be delivering something that will move the needle for them? What would you say are like the keys that project managers need to understand today to create that leverage for themselves?
Yeah, great question. And I think, you know, you talked there about the iron triangle, the kind of, you know, time, cost, quality, and so on. And I think there's this idea out there that that's kind of old school, and now there is kind of a new way of thinking. I don't necessarily think it's about an either or. I think, of course, you want projects to be delivered on time and within budget and to the right level of quality. We're never going to abandon that. But that's not the only thing that's important.
Sure.
For me, at the heart of all projects is long-term benefits realization. And we see this, when we're setting out the scope of a new project, when I'm thinking about the business case, people start thinking about trying to quantify the return on investment and the benefits. And that's, of course, important. But the bit that we always miss out, in my opinion, is actually going back again many, many years after a project is finished to say, actually, what was the long-term impact of that project? Did it really deliver the benefits that we thought it would, not just at the end of the project, but even 20, 30, 40 years on? Because I suspect that then what you see is, because the world has changed, there are some unintended benefits and some unintended consequences. And that's, I think, where we can get the real learning that will feed into having a more informed strategic impact on future projects, particularly on major projects.
Long-term benefits. When I think about this as well, I always smile, because I sat with a mentoring session with a project manager and asked the same question. And like, yes, you've been given a mandate that has been signed off. You've got a business case, great check. You've got a charter that kind of authorizes you to do the project. And I asked him, like, what exactly are the key benefits that you are meant to be delivering? He's like, yeah, I think I've got a scope of work to deliver, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on. As long as I do that, I know I've actually been successful. I'm like, okay, that's there, and that's great that you're going to deliver the scope. But at the end of the day, if we cannot really tie back tangible benefits that you are tracking against, and even post-project delivery, that yes, we can come back and tie back and say, this project was meant to maybe increase our revenues maybe by 20%. In 12 months. And then you've delivered your project, maybe it was a new system, was an upgrade. However, if 12 months down the line, we really were not able to really achieve that, that project really was never a success. And I guess having that strategic focus to understand, how does my project tie back in, and how can I ensure that even after post-project's been delivered, how am I even tracking to ensure that, my project, my organization wins and I win? Because I really want to so ensure that PMs understand the strategic place that they now take in the organization beyond just delivering that idea. You want to say something? Okay.
No, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And what I'm thinking is you're really articulating very well here that difference between project management and project leadership, right?
That's right.
I think you're really kind of capturing this, because, the project manager, if you like, almost takes that, not quite, doesn't quite abstain from the responsibility, but a distance, if you like, from it, which is, I've been given a job to do, I make sure it's done, and I just stick to the scope, come what may. Where actually project leadership is almost that kind of co-produced approach to it. It's that it's almost, because you are, if you like, the delivery expert. Sometimes the project commissioner, the project sponsor, they might not know whether the project that they've commissioned is going to have the impact that they want it to have in terms of benefits. But you as the project leader might be able to see that. So I think this is this co-production piece where you will then say to the commissioner and to the sponsor, hang on a minute, we could do this better, or we could do this differently in order to better realize the benefits that you're after. And then it becomes a kind of bilateral relationship, a genuine, equal, meaningful partnership, if you like, between the leadership in terms of the commissioning and sponsorship side, and the leadership in terms of the strategy delivery and project delivery side of things.
You're the great best person to answer this question. We look at the leadership piece, you look at the tactical pieces as well, and we look at, when it comes to overall success of organization, there's a lot of influence that has to happen. And project managers, even during their project and after, they need to understand the formula on how to really get things done. Going back to realizing benefits and getting the results that they want. I want to understand, how does culture come into play for you? Because you've got a diverse background. How have you been able to leverage that? You guys are going to hear some interesting pieces today, because let's dive into that. Because for instance, we're going to be celebrating International Women's Day very soon, and we talk about diversity and equity and all those pieces. And I think it's a skill that project managers need to understand how to leverage, because being a global world, a global playing field, we have different cultures, we have different people, we have different ways of tackling things. So from your experience, how would you really manage the cultural diversity that comes to play to get results?
Yeah, no, it's great. Again, another great question. I think the secret here is making sure, it's not assuming that you know the answer to everything and can understand every single perspective. No one person can possibly understand every perspective of every stakeholder. That's it. It's impossible. But what you can do is really make sure that every stakeholder has this equal, meaningful voice to bring to the table, and that's when you get that richness. That diversity and cultural exchange brings. And as I said before, we commissioned this piece of research called Dynamic Conditions for Project Success. And it looked to set out what were the kind of the key conditions that led to effective project outcomes and project delivery. And right in there was diversity as something that not only is morally the right thing to do, but actually adds value for that very reason. Because let's say you have a set of stakeholders for whom the benefit of the project is supposed to help that group. You might have a well-intentioned understanding of how that's going to work, but you can never possibly completely understand their perspective because you're not them. So you need those people to be part of the project to be able to deliver it as well as possible. So I think in answer to your question, what I'm saying is don't assume that you have all the answers, but bring in the people and surround yourself by the people that can bring those different perspectives.
You have given a great insight, and I want to really understand how come you are so open and so flexible to this. Does anything tie back to your own background?
Yes. Well, look. I have a lot of diversity in my own background. My father's family were from the UK, but my mum's family are actually from Nigeria as their heritage. And so my granddad actually moved over here when he was a teenager, I think, and joined the Navy. He was in the Merchant Navy, the Royal Navy. I grew up with, certainly an ethnically diverse background, but I think it's probably even richer than that again. I mean, it's worth saying that, I was first in my family to go to university. My parents and my family growing up, we're not by no means a wealthy family. And I went to a primary school, which I would describe as, let's say, quite rough, we would say, in the UK, but I was fortunate to go to a secondary school because of a scholarship that was perhaps at the other extreme, right? So that meant I had this experience, if you like, and all the people from my primary school thought I'd kind of gone posh, right, when I went to secondary school, and all the people in the secondary school thought I was a kind of, what we call a scally off the estate here, So what did that mean for me? It meant I had like a 10-year identity crisis where I didn't really know what was going on. But long term, that gives me great insight, because it means I've got some real genuine first-hand understanding of different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, different kind of social, economic backgrounds. And all of that, I think, comes to play, because it means that when it comes to understanding people, which is a big part of obviously delivering projects, I think it gives me a bit of a head start, really, in understanding where people are coming from.
That's a very good point. And I talk about leaders being human as well, and just understanding that you have got your own cultural roots. And I see diversity as one that brings, it's just like having a bowl of salad, right? Where you have the greens or reds, like it's just saying that it has bring the rainbow in, and having people with the same ideology, the same mindset. It just means it's going to be kind of like just really, really linear. But being open to ideas, it's one skill set I believe strategic project leaders need to have. For a project manager to obviously be able to climb up the corporate ladder, that piece is absolutely critical. Adam, when I look at your background as well, you have been able to chart a very successful path. I know you've worked in charity. You work as a CEO of APM. How did you really map out that path from that frontline, just independent contributor to come up the ladder to the top? Because so many people will say they want to be like Adam when they grow up. What's that secret, right? What did you do? We want to know.
Oh, I don't believe all these people are definitely saying that, but it's nice of you to say that. But look, I think the thing I would say is, if you'd asked me even 5 years ago, would I be doing this job now, or 10 years ago, would I be a chief exec? I wouldn't have foreseen that. And so I think one of the things I've done is been opportunistic. So, when opportunities have come along, rather than kind of take a step back from it and kind of say, oh, there's no way I think I could ever do that, I've intentionally put myself out of my comfort zone, which is a professional risk, right? Because if it goes wrong, oh, what could happen? But actually, it's being able to take those opportunities that's allowed me to move around. And the other thing I would say about these opportunities is, of course, these opportunities don't just turn up uninvited. You kind of have to let people know that you want to take those opportunities. And one of the things, coming back to the kind of this point about being able to talk to people and to get on with people, that gives you that chance to say to people, do you know what? I'm really ambitious. I want to get on in my career. I want to try different things. So if there's a chance, give me a chance. And you know what? It's interesting now that I'm in a leadership post. It's really hard to find good people. It's really tough out there, right? There's lots of people that want to make it to the top, and some of them can, and some of them need some help. But trying to find really good people that are ready for the post that you need at the right time is not easy. So when I see people who say, look, I really want to get there, I'm somebody who likes to give them a chance. And I see that someone said this to me once, and I really like this phrase. I see that as a kind of, not a handout, but a hand up. And I feel that's what people gave to me. And I like to give that to other people as well.
A hand up. You guys heard that? Give people a hand up. I always say, like, you need to be there to help hold the ladder so people can go up the rungs of leadership, for sure, creating those opportunities to help them grow and support true mentorship or whatever that is. But you've hit a point around challenges. You've made it clear that you've been able to like go up the corporate ladder. But what would you say are the common challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So I think that just my challenges, and then there's the kind of challenges that I see within the project profession. And I think they're kind of two kind of distinct things. In terms of my personal challenges, I think the first thing is kind of believing in yourself. So, I probably come across as a very kind of confident individual and everything else. But just like everybody else, I have those days when I think, crikey, am I doing the right thing? Is it okay? Am I good at what I'm doing? Everybody has that, and if anybody tells you they don't, it's not true, right? Everybody has that kind of imposter syndrome that sometimes. But I think being able to kind of push through that and surround yourself by people who will give you that opportunity sometimes to get it wrong, and that becomes a learning opportunity rather than a failing opportunity. That's the secret. And the other thing as well is, I think in terms of challenges for me, has been sometimes trying to, I suppose, get past other people's misconceptions or preconceptions. I said before about my own background, and what that sometimes means is that people put you in a box. This is Adam. This is where he's from, and this is what he's about. So he can do this. And it's interesting that, of course, when you put yourself out there and you prove that you can do something, then you get put in a different box. And so being in the box at the beginning can be a problem, but being in the box later on can actually really help you.
100%.
Not being in any boxes, I suppose it's put yourself in the box that you want to be in, I suppose, and choose it for yourself. Don't let anybody else put you there.
That's weird, because for me, though, I say I didn't actually even see a box.
Yeah.
And that may be different, right? I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, people say there's a box. I'm like, I don't even see a box. I am just creative. I'm like, whatever the issue is, I want to be the solution. Bring it on. But having people, as you said, who are able to give you a chance to really maybe not just fail, but learn. Having those leaders, because you are one who are open to like support and mentor people, but not everyone is able to get the chance to actually learn and do that. One piece I want to know, because you're already letting me, I'm falling in love more with APM. With project management, I know there's so many pieces around. We have PMI, we have APM, we have different bodies of knowledge, but how exactly does APM show themselves or distinguish themselves from all the other bodies of knowledge? Because I know we've got a large audience in North America as well, who they have their own ideology. I wanted to dive into that. How does APM position themselves as leaders within this particular space?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple of things here. So I think, first of all, some of the organizations that you've talked about there, not all of them are professional bodies. Some of them are. Some of them are kind of training organizations. Some of them are accreditation organizations. So I think all of them are slightly different. I think in terms of what makes APM kind of unique, I suppose, are 2 points. One, lots of the organizations you've talked about would advocate a particular methodology for delivering projects. If you want to deliver projects, you do it in this way, and this is kind of the only way. I think at APM, we're almost methodology agnostic, if you like. So all of these different approaches can fit within the kind of wider framework, if you like, that APM talks about, those principles of effective project delivery. So I think that's the first thing that's different. The second thing, and probably the most important thing, is the fact that we are the only chartered membership association for the project profession in the world. And chartership is obviously something which is granted to us by the Privy Council on behalf of the royal family. But the thing that's unique about chartership is it's not just about it's not just a qualification where you demonstrate your knowledge or your understanding and so on. It's about competence. It's about saying, yes, I've read the book, I've had the experience, but more than that, I've put it in practice. I've proven that actually, if you put me on a project, I know exactly what I'm doing. It's almost a license to practice, if you like. And that's not so easy necessarily in all parts of the world because of the way that litigation works and everything else. But it's something that actually it may be fairly unique to the UK that we really like to have, which is, if I'm going to get a professional in to do a job, I want to know that they are a competent professional that has that kind of has met that standard, if you like, that competent standard of delivery.
So you say you become chartered. So what is that process like then? Is it like an exam that you have to go through, or is it? I really want to get in a lot of detail. So if a PM says, I want to become chartered by APM, what does that process look like?
Sure. So there is a set of competencies which are laid out, and there's a fair few of them, and there's different categories that they fall within. But essentially, what you have to do is provide evidence that you meet the different criteria, and there are different ways in which you do that. So some of those things are around technical knowledge and experience, as I talked about before. Some of that is around actual delivery and so on. Some of that is around also the ethics of project delivery as well. So it's not just give me the scope and I'll go away and deliver it well. We want you to deliver it in the right way. And it comes back to the point we talked about earlier on in terms of social impact and that benefit to society. That's all part of this. So essentially, you demonstrate you can meet those competencies. There's scenarios that you have to look at in there. There's an interview as well with chartered assessors. You have to demonstrate previous knowledge and experience that you've got. So there are lots of different ways in. And essentially, if you meet all those competencies, then you can become chartered.
Oh, that's great. Because that's pretty good, because when we look at the reports coming out that ties back to the global economy, we know that project management has been estimated to have created about 17 trillion US dollars in the world's GDP. So that's kind of mind blowing, and the need for project professionals is almost astronomical. How can people? We know we're talking about economic and social change now. How should people start thinking about this? What should they be doing today to be ready to ensure that we can actually not just get the role, but how can we sustain this pace as well? What do you think?
So we're kind of talking about capability and capacity here, and sometimes these two things are kind of used interchangeably, because I think part of the challenge is that there is a fundamental misconception that exists in the wider world about what the project profession actually is. I confess here that before I joined APM, I also had this misconception. That's how I know it exists, right? And that is that people see it not as when you talk about the kind of the GDP kind of impact and so on, people just look at that and they think, really, I can't think of any project professionals I know, or if they can, they think of them as doing some kind of admin type role rather than having this huge impact on GDP. So they just don't see it. And so there are all these accidental project managers out there who are doing project roles who don't realize it. So part of the secret to unlocking and educating, so unlocking the capacity and educating the kind of wider world, if you like, is helping to shine a light on the professionals that are already there. I mean, to give you some sense of scale on this, and I'll use a UK example just because we're both, of course, in the UK at the moment. We did a report in 2019 which talked about the value of the project profession in the UK compared to other things. And this, if you imagine, this is kind of Brexit-ish time, okay?
That's right.
And so what we had then was quite interesting. Is we had the entirety of the City of London, which was talked about a lot in terms of the impact of Brexit. That was 101 billion gross value added per year to the UK economy, whereas the project profession was estimated to be worth 156 billion. Gross value added, so 50% more than the City of London, and I didn't hear that mentioned once in.
Oh my goodness.
So this is what I mean why there's this misconception that people don't understand that the project profession is there. It's almost operating in plain sight. And by the way, when they do hear about it, it's never good news, right? There's always this kind of trial by media that happens. So front page news on a project is when it's gone wrong.
That's right. It's $12 billion sunk.
So we've got to start being more positive about it, educating the wider world and unlocking the capacity that's already there. And that will help us to meet the kind of social and economic challenges that you raised before, which, by the way, is crucial because, we hear about UN sustainability goals. We always talk about net zero, for example. One of the questions I'm asking is, how many project professionals is it going to take us to meet the ambitions that we've got around net zero, for example?
Yeah,
we don't know that, and I suspect it's more than we've got. So we've really got a real challenge here, a real tangible challenge.
So what would you, with this in mind, what should be the steps that project managers need to start taking now? Because a lot of them are just accidental, right? They just go on just right there, the triple constraints kind of thing. But when we look at the global impact, we look at sustainability, there's so many different layers to that. What would you say is like the critical things that they should start thinking about right away?
Well, of course, this is where I think the kind of project profession and the kind of ESG agenda, so your environmental social governance agenda, I think are going to collide. And in fact, I think they probably already have, but we haven't realised it fully yet. So you've got projects out there which are purely about the environment or social impact or corporate governance. There are those projects designed to deliver that. But then you've also got other projects where this is going to be a factor because for so many organisations now, ESG is such a high priority for good reasons that I think it's almost baked in to every project. So I think that's got to be right up there in terms of what to prioritise. In terms of the practical aspect of that, I think we've got to be really careful that we don't constantly re-baseline projects in such a way that we can kind of prove that they're successful at the end, even if they don't really meet these kind of ESG goals. So I had a colleague of mine talk about this as kind of corporate amnesia. This idea that you're delivering a project and then I don't know that the scope changes or you intentionally change the scope because you say the world around you has changed, and so the rating of this project as presented to the sponsor kind of stays green all the time, but actually what you're delivering never quite delivers what you set out to deliver in the first place. And if we're having that kind of slippage, if you like, on the kind of environmental, social and governance side of things, that's the bit that's going to cause us problems long term. So we've got to make sure that we do not have corporate amnesia when it comes to ESG.
I know that's a great point, and a key piece. I know I saw a post and I was reading a book as well that's kind of similar about the move from more around the command and control to more about engaging and like empowering. Because for us to get anything done, it takes that camaraderie. It takes, we've been able to coalesce together to get things done. And you're just saying that, yes, this is how things are going to be from top down. Change is never really going to happen. So that evolution that needs to happen where there's a shift from leadership, there's a shift even from PMs and just from the frontline workers. I think that's definitely needed. And I think a lot of influence is one that our project managers and project leaders need to understand how have you been able to leverage the power of influence? What are those secrets that you have been able to learn through your career to be able to influence to get things done?
Yeah, and you referenced there a book that I've read recently, which which was written actually by one of our fellows of APM, a chap called Gordon McKay, very experienced project leader. And one of the things he talks about in the book, which I really liked, is this idea of the nocebo effect. Which was a learning thing for me. So for people listening who might not know what this is, it's the opposite of the placebo effect. And the idea of the nocebo effect is that if you've got a leader, particularly a project leader, who has a lack of faith in their team to deliver and uses this kind of command and control approach, that can actually inhibit the delivery impact of that team itself. And I thought it's a really interesting point, which is the influence and impact that taking the right leadership approach on a project can have. So it's not just about kind of holding people to account and turning the things screws, as it were. It really is about making sure that you empower the team, and that's what Gordon's book's all about, which is fantastic.
That's a great segue for us to get into project lifestyle. Just as Adam was talking about that evolving from like project leadership around command and control to more about engaging and empowering, I thought this would be a great one for our project lifestyle segment today. Are you a leader who is one who's thinking, how can I really evolve in my personal life? And how can I think about this differently? I want to give you just some quick nuggets about 6 different steps that you can take away today that will help you create that shift from not just saying it has to be done this way to more about collaboration. 1, I want you to go off and take a self-assessment. Assess yourself and just be honest to understand what exactly is my leadership style. At home, do I just tell my spouse that it has to be done this way and that's it? Or am I one who's actually willing to listen and get feedback? That's 1. Take an assessment and look inwards and say, how exactly do I show up every single day? And then you're going to go off and say, what do I really want to achieve? What's the vision? Whatever that idea is, you need to communicate it and ensure that it's one that is done collaboratively. You come together and say, this is the vision for the family, and this is kind of what we need to get to and where we need to get to. But there has to be a transition in engaging and empowering everyone around where they realize that the vision of what we need to achieve, it takes everyone. It makes sure that that idea can actually be driven successfully. That's 2. So first, start with an assessment to communicate the vision, and then I need to set clear expectations. Make sure everyone knows what you definitely want. Be open to feedback and listen. I always say, always listen to really understand, not just to respond in every single aspect. Make sure you're doing that. That's number 3. And I'm going to end with a 2-tag piece, which is invest in your personal development. Invest in yourself so that when you go back even to the first step, because it's going to be one that's going to be continuous, keep assessing, keep communicating the vision, set clear expectation, and continuously invest in yourself for ensure that you can continuously improve. Adam, how can we leverage this as well in our personal life? Because we have that segment, because I believe project management is one that we actually need and we can use in everyday life. So what do you think?
Well, absolutely. And in fact, we used to have as our kind of strapline before we had the kind of when projects succeed, society benefits. We used to have enabling project management as a life skill for all. So we've absolutely lived and breathed the exact point that you're talking about. And I think it's interesting that the wider world, I think, is catching up with the profession in some ways. There's this kind of projectification or projectization of many different walks of life, and you see it in leadership roles when it comes to kind of strategy delivery, but you see it as you say in your personal life, because you can almost take anything, can't you, and say, well, let's look at this as a project. What are the risks? What is it I really want to achieve at the end of this? Who do I need to engage to make sure I get this done? What does success look like? Do I have the resources? All of those things. Now, I'm not saying that you need to have reams and reams of paper when you're kind of talking to your children about going on a shopping trip, but it's more the mindset, right? It's just thinking about actually what we're going to do and the structure that it brings. So I think it's definitely a life skill for all.
Definitely. I want to say, what would be the final summary? Because I know I can't believe that we've already gone half an hour so quick. It's always great when you're definitely having fun. But when we think about as project leaders, in order to actually drive social and economic impact, what would you say are your final key points that everyone needs to take action on today?
Okay, so from a leadership perspective, I would say if we think about what any leaders were doing, let alone project leaders, any leaders 50 years ago, it was mostly delivering business as usual with a relatively small amount of change. I think that's now completely reversed. I think almost every person in a leadership role now is trying to deliver change in a major way. And if that's the case, the project profession has huge value to add. Project leaders, particularly strategic project leaders, are almost a catalyst, if you like, for strategy delivery. So I think that means they should be right up there. They should be part of the C-suite. They should be engaged in those conversations that happen in almost the same journey, by the way, that we saw marketing as a profession go on from almost the backroom function to the C-suite function. So I think we need to put ourselves into that place. The other takeaway I would say is that you heard me talk a lot about association project management today, about its membership, about its chartership. If you're not a member, if you're not chartered already, why not? Have a look at that. That's definitely going to help you on that journey. And I suppose my final point would be just a big thank you, because I guess lots of the people listening today are involved in projects. And I'd like to say to them, thank you for making the world a better place, one project at a time.
That's right. We definitely make projects even better, but the impact we get. I love this tagline that when projects succeed, society benefit. I keep saying it all the time because when we succeed, it means that we live a better life, we create a better impact, and overall, it creates a win-win overall. I just want to say thank you so much, Professor, for being here. I want to thank you for the work you're doing within APM. I want to thank you for the work you're doing within the community. And I want to thank you for taking time to be here today. It's been a great pleasure. We just gave a little piece of a taste of what you can get from Adam. How can people connect with you?
Okay, well, a few different ways. So obviously on social media. So I'm on LinkedIn, and it's just Adam Boddison. I'm also on Twitter at Adam Boddison. And of course, you can visit the APM website and find out more about me there too, and also the wider work that we do at APM.
That's right. It's definitely a great pleasure to be part of all of these communities from APM, PMI, and PMO, everything in between. It's all about getting results and getting things done. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Goodness, I had people from Istanbul. I even had my great leader who actually joined us from Nigeria as well. Thank you so much for being here. And as you know, when you hear about something great, what do? You need to share. Share this with someone. Let them actually know that you definitely care and be that person that's going to hold the ladder for someone to go up that rungs of leadership, because you never know when that act of kindness will definitely come back to you. As I always make it clear to each and every one of you is that you are your life's project manager and you are the best project you can actually ever work on. That's right. And the return on investment in you is astronomical. That's right. So take time today and do you. Professional development, as Adam has actually said, check out the APM website. Think about how you can be part of that. There's so many things going on. Keep growing, because when that opportunity actually comes, you need to be prepared for that. There's no time to waste, so take action today. I want to say thank you for being here. Next week, we're going to have a great episode. You do not want to miss it. If you want to learn more about what we do as a strategic project leader, connect with us on strategicprojectleader.com and connect with me as well. Let me know you were on this particular episode. We've got some great content and some great freebies that we're going to have for you as well. Professor, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a wonderful one as well. I want to thank each and every one of you. And as you know, take time and do you, and see you on the next one. Have a good one.